Hey guys, so today I wanted to do a video just showing you my classics collection because I kind of realized that of all the books I own, most of them are classics. Obviously I can't like talk about every book in this video. A lot of them I actually haven't read because I used to just, when I was in high school, I used to just buy classics because you can get them secondhand. So I'd buy them without having read them. Some of them are for uni papers that I'm doing like next year. I guess I should say a little bit of what I think a classic is. It's basically a book that has kind of stood the test of time, like books that are 50 years or older. I think anything like 50 years-ish is considered like a modern classic, and older than that, like I love books from the 1800s. The 19th century is like my favorite time period for literature, and there are classics in so many different genres to suit so many different people. If you guys want recommendations for specific genres, or like if you like this then you'll like this, that kind of video, let me know that in the comments because I could do that one day. From high school I just got really into classics and I really didn't read anything else, so it's only in the last couple years since I found BookTube that I've been reading YA. Like I read The Hunger Games and Maze Runner and like those dystopian books when they were really popular, but I was actually finished with school by the time I read all of them. I think I was like 20. So yeah, in high school I was all about classics, and yeah, I just got really into them. So The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins is definitely one of my favorites. It's super mysterious. A guy runs into a woman all dressed in white, and then the police come up to him, and or some men or something, I think the police come up to him and are like, oh, have you seen a woman in white, because she's escaped from somewhere. And it just follows this crazy storyline, and it just gets crazier and crazier. It's really awesome. Another one of my favorites of all time is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This would actually be a really great Halloween book. It's about a guy who basically sells his soul to stay like young and handsome. There's a picture of him that gets painted, and he just thinks, wow, I look so great, I wish I could be like this forever. And it kind of just follows him spiraling into like being a really horrible person, and it's a fantastic book. The writing is beautiful. Oscar Wilde is a brilliant writer. The reason I bought this one is because in Gilmore Girls, when Rory first meets Jess, like the first night they meet, he steals this from her room and then gives it back to her with annotations. So when I saw this in a bookstore one day, I was like, I have to have that because it's the exact same like edition and everything. So yeah. I haven't really looked into the poetry too much. I've read it a few times, but I'm not really that into poetry. This copy of The Tempest, which is one of William Shakespeare's plays, I have an anthology of William Shakespeare's works, which I'll show you at some point, but this one was gifted to me when I did Shakespeare in high school. We did this thing where it was like the juniors, so like year 9 and 10, we would do a Shakespeare performance directed by a senior, so someone in year 13, and the girl that directed the little play that I was in gifted me and the other girl a copy of a Shakespeare play, which I thought was really, really sweet, so I've kept this. A lot of mine have the titles rubbed off, but this one is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I read this recently for uni. It's also a good, like, slightly gothic-y kind of novel. I wouldn't call it like horror or anything by any means, but it's got like a bit of a gothic-y vibe, which is really good. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about this. It's a great romance if you're in the mood for some romance. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I've never read any Charles Dickens aside from A Christmas Carol. I'll read this eventually one day. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I've read this a few times. It's never sunken in. I have no idea what this is about. It's so short, but it's bloody dense. And yeah, I don't know. I want to reread this at some point because I have to know if I should keep it or not. I don't think I like it at all, but Captain Curly's Mandolin, which was a gift to me from one of my friends when I was in high school, and I read it back then, but I have no memory of what this is about. My friend wrote in it that he'd seen the movie, which was awesome, but he hadn't read the book, but he flicked through and thought it looked really good. So yeah, I need to reread this at some point. Dead Souls by who is this by? Nikolai Gogol. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. He's a Russian author. This is a beautiful copy, obviously. It's one of the most beautiful classics that I own. But I bought this again purely because of Gilmore Girls, because in one of the episodes Rory is reading it. And I did read it in high school. Again, I don't really remember much, and Russian books are always confusing because of all the names. They sound very similar. So I need to reread this one day as well. The Trial by Franz Kafka. I really didn't like this at all. I'm gonna unhaul it. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This is a really good classic dystopian. If you like dystopian, this might be a good place to start with classics. There's a lot of book burning in this. I have Animal Farm by George Orwell, and this is amazing. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. There's not much plot to it, but it's a really good focus on character and a very moody teenager. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Haven't read this one yet. I have a few of these like orange penguin classics as well because these are pretty cheap. They're usually around like $8 I think, which is really good. So this is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. This is about a guy who was in like an asylum, and I really like this one. It's really great. I have Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. I had to read this when I was in high school for one of my essays or something, and I really liked this one, but I haven't liked any other Steinbeck that I've read at all. I kind of liked The Grapes of Wrath, but it wasn't great, and then everything else I've hated. Selected poems by John Keats. I was kind of obsessed with Keats in high school. There was a movie that came out about his life and I was just obsessed. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. To be honest, I didn't even know that I owned a copy of this. I must have bought it secondhand like relatively recently because it's one of my all-time favorites, but I had read it from the library and then I read it in one of my classes in high school, so I had like that borrowed copy and then I just hadn't bought it, but I love it, so I'm glad that I own this. There's some children's classics in here as well. I've got Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne and I reread this recently and loved it. I have another little short story slash poetry collection by Edgar Allan Poe. This is The Pit and the Pendulum, and there's a bunch of different like stories and stuff in here. Also a good Halloween one if you're interested. All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Remarque. This is a good look at war and why it's wrong. I have Lady Oracle by Margaret Atwood. I haven't read this one either. I kind of hate the cover, but it was cheap. I have these two, which are in like the same edition. I have Scarlet Letter and Robinson Crusoe. I read both of these in high school. This one I have no memory of at all. This one is a pretty like well-known story, so I know what it's about, but I don't think I really liked it. It's very, very dense. I have this one, which is very interesting. It's kind of a philosophical book, which I have a few of those as well because philosophy is something that I'm really interested in. It's my minor at uni, and this one is The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and this is a very interesting read. Would recommend. The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. This is a fantastic, really action-packed adventure story that, if that's something you like, this is a really great classic. And then I have this one, which is called 20 Years After, and it's kind of a sequel to The Three Musketeers, I think, and I tried to read this and it didn't sit with me. I just couldn't get into it and I was really confused about what was going on, and I don't know if it's because it's a different translator to this one because they're originally written in French and this is a different translation, obviously a lot older, and I think maybe that's why I didn't like it as much, or maybe it's just not a very good sequel. I don't know. 2 copies of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This one is just, you know, chapter book. And then this one is like a picture book. I just like having a couple different copies of it. I found this one secondhand and I just thought it was really cute. And the same thing with Black Beauty. I actually bought this one on the same day as that other illustrated one, but this is my chapter book copy. I have had this probably, it's one of the like oldest books that like I've had for the longest time, you know what I mean? I got this real young when I was a kid and I was obsessed with it. I don't even know how many times I've read this book. A lot of times. So I bought this illustrated edition as well, which is really beautiful. Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is another good Halloween one. It is very like long. I feel like it's very drawn out, but I did enjoy it. To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, which I had to read for uni. Again, it's very focused on characters rather than plot, so if that's something you like, you might like this book. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, another good Halloween one. Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger. This is awesome. I freaking love it. Again, if you like reading characters, you will love this book. I have 2 copies of Peter Pan as well, which I did not know. I thought I only had this one. I forgot that I had this one. So this is just a regular old copy of Peter Pan, and this is a really beautiful like illustrated edition with different little bits and pieces in it. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time. It's The Lady of the Camellias by Alexandre Dumas, and it's not the same Dumas that wrote The Three Musketeers. This is his son, I think. And this book is freaking awesome. It kind of reminds me of Moulin Rouge, so if you like Moulin Rouge, this book is incredible. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is, I think technically it was a children's classic. I don't know if kids these days it would be like something that they would want to read. I don't know. I think they should because it's awesome. It's your classic pirate story. It's great. Another one of my all-time favorites is An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser, and this is freaking awesome. It is a focus on the justice system because it's about a death that happens and someone gets accused of murder, and it's kind of a bit of like a, does it count as murder? How does it play out in court? How does the justice system work? I have recently been reading like Dangerous Girls and With Malice. They both kind of remind me of why I love this book so much. It's incredible. If that's something you really like reading about, you will really like this book. Another one that I had to read for uni is Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. He is the author of Lolita as well. and this one is like a commentary on a poem. It's very, very interesting, and I kind of hated it, but the more and more I read it, because I had to read it like a lot of times, the more I liked it. We're nearly done, I swear. So I've got The Wizard of Oz by Frank Albaum. Look at these creepy guys. Creepy, creepy. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This is another really, really well-known classic. It's about a bunch of kids that get stranded on an island. I have another couple like philosophical works. This one is Plato's Republic. Very interesting. And I also have this collection, which is Plato, Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. I have read the Plato section. I don't think I've read the other two sections aside from like skimming parts of them. I will one day. And now I just have some anthologies. I have the Norton Anthology of American Literature, and this just has a whole bunch of American literature in it. It's like one of those books with Bible-thin pages, like it's crazy. But this has the adventures of Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn, one or the other, I can't remember which one, but I love that story, and there are other bits and pieces that I've read in here. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is the Barnes & Noble classic edition. Barnes & Noble have some really good classics that are cheap and have beautiful covers. And then the last one is the complete works of William Shakespeare, which is just handy to have when you're an English student. So that is my classics collection. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions about any of the books I held up, or you didn't quite like catch the name or whatever, I don't want to list them all in the info bar or anything, but if you're like, what was that book where you said it was about this thing, feel free to ask me and I'll tell you like the title and the author so you can actually go find it, because I know like it's hard sometimes to catch titles. But yeah, if you want like a specific review or anything, or just anything to do with classics that you want to know, ask me that in the comments down below. I might make like other videos related to classics, because it is definitely probably my favorite genre, even though there are like definitely different types of genres of classics anyway. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought of them, especially the ones that I haven't read. I need some encouragement for those, and I will see you guys with another video in a couple of days. Thanks for watching. Bye.